Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take the material you give us reading, listening, whatever, and really boil it down. We find the essential knowledge so you get a solid understanding fast.
And today we're diving into, well, a pretty concerning collection of sources. We've got audio clips and a social audit report focusing on child shelter homes, mostly in Bihar, India.
Right, and our mission really is to pull out the key issues from these sources. What's going on with the well-being, the safety of children in these homes, especially looking at some very disturbing allegations about one specific shelter in Muzaffarpur.
Yeah, the sources are quite varied. We have actual audio conversations, even bits that sound like they're from a news report, and then this more formal social audit document. It gives us a few different angles.
Okay, so where does this all start? It seems like it kicks off with this social audit report.
Exactly, that seems to be the catalyst. A report surfaces, raises some serious red flags about the Muzaffarpur girls' shelter home. It details some potential, really troubling problems there.
And how does this report get out?
Well, it reaches a journalist, Vaishali Singh, through someone the sources just call Guptaji, and it's made pretty clear that Guptaji took a significant risk sharing this. It kind of highlights the dangers involved when you try to expose things like this.
What did the report actually say? Anything specific mentioned early on?
The key thing flagged right away seems to be physical abuse happening at that Muzaffarpur shelter.
Okay, so Vaishali Singh, the journalist, gets this report. What does she do?
She tries to get the story moving, but hits roadblocks. Even though this report is apparently 2 months old already, getting police or government officials to act is tough. They just don't seem interested initially.
2 months old. That delay itself is telling.
It really is. It suggests maybe a lack of urgency or, maybe something more deliberate going on.
And then there's this figure, Bansi Sahu. He complicates things.
Immensely, it seems. He's described as a media owner, newspapers and such, with apparently strong government connections. And there are allegations tying him directly to a shelter home in Muzaffarpur as well.
So potential conflict of interest there.
A big one. And the sources indicate he wasn't passive. He actively tried to shut down Vaishali's investigation, even using intimidation tactics.
Okay, so let's back up to that social audit report itself. Where did it come from? Who commissioned it?
Right, so this audit was actually commissioned by the government itself, the Social Welfare Department in Bihar. That was back in October 2017.
And who carried it out?
An organization called the Noble Institute of Social Studies, NISS for short. They conducted the audit. And while we don't have the whole report, it's clear the Muzaffarpur girls' shelter became a major focus because of what they found.
And again, the timeline is key here. 2 months pass after this report lands on someone's desk.
Over 2 months, yeah. A report detailing potential abuse in a government-funded shelter, and apparently nothing. No public acknowledgement, no obvious action from the state government.
That lack of response is, well, it's a huge part of the story.
It absolutely points to a possible systemic breakdown, doesn't it? A failure to act on critical information.
Which sets the stage for the difficulties Vaishali faced. Let's talk more about Bansi Sahu's influence. How powerful was he, according to these sources?
Well, his media ownership seems significant. He apparently owns several newspapers. Navayug Munawwarpur, News Mewwarpur, Siyasat Bihar are mentioned. And crucially, they supposedly get a lot of government advertising money.
Ah, okay. So that creates a dependency, a connection.
Exactly. A financial tie that could make the government, reluctant to antagonize him or look too closely into things he might be connected with, like this shelter home situation.
And the connections went beyond just the media empire.
That's the suggestion. Allegations link him personally to a shelter in Muzaffarpur and also suggest he has ties with various NGOs, maybe even connections reaching quite high up in the government, potentially the chief minister's level.
Wow, okay, that's a network. Makes investigating incredibly risky.
No doubt. And the sources describe pretty direct intimidation against Vaishali.
What kind of things happen?
Well, Sahu allegedly called her husband directly, a clear threat. And then, even more worrying, someone was apparently sent to physically assault her brother-in-law. The audio calls him Memon.
Physically assault him. That's a serious escalation.
Definitely shows the length someone was willing to go to, allegedly, to silence this investigation.
And it wasn't just Sahu creating obstacles. The authorities, the police, they weren't helpful either.
Not initially, no. The sources state the police were reluctant to even file an FIR, a first information report, based on the social audit's findings.
Even with findings like physical abuse.
Apparently not. And that reluctance continued even after Vaishali's brother-in-law was assaulted. There's mention of a specific duty officer, Prabhat Kumar.
Yes.
His duty roster was reportedly canceled by the SSP, the Senior Superintendent of Police. That hints at possible interference from higher up within the police structure itself.
So the police were slow to act, and the social welfare department, the ones who commissioned the audit in the first place.
They were just silent. For those 2+ months after getting the NISS report, nothing. It's deeply concerning. Raises serious questions about accountability, you know. Were they deliberately burying it?
All of this just highlights the danger for journalists like Vaishali or whistleblowers like Guptaji.
Absolutely. Guptaji's warning to Vaishali about taking on powerful people wasn't just talk. And you see it, too, in the fear expressed by others, like Sudha, who were hesitant to speak out. The risks were very real.
Let's talk about Sudha. Her testimony sounds like a key piece here, an inside view. Who was she?
Sudha is described as a former cook at the Muzaffarpur girls' shelter. Interestingly, she was placed there by her father, who apparently thought Bensi Sahu was a good man, which is just tragic irony given what follows.
What was her impression when she started working there?
She mentions encountering someone named Sonu, who seemed to be running things day to day, and the house mother, Baby Rani, who looked ordinary, but Sudha felt wasn't what she seemed.
And the place itself, the condition.
Sudha paints a pretty bleak picture. A large hall, overcrowded, just mattresses on the floor. And significantly, she mentions no windows. She estimated 45 girls lived there.
45 girls in one hall, no windows.
Yeah. And she also noted some of the girls had mental health issues, making them even more vulnerable. Her gut feeling was immediate alarm. She actually warned some girls, told them to try and escape if they could, saying the people there were not good.
Did she witness specific incidents?
She did, and they're disturbing. She talks about seeing girls being taken away somewhere, hearing them crying and screaming, and then seeing them return with marks on their bodies.
Oh, God.
Yeah. She also knew about one girl who was allegedly locked in a room for days without food or water as punishment for watching what's described as a blue film.
Days without food or water.
That's the claim, and maybe the most chilling detail. So this says she overheard a conversation. A plan, apparently, to make one of the mentally challenged girls kill another girl.
That's horrifying. Unthinkable.
It really is. It paints a picture of just extreme abuse and manipulation within those walls.
You can only imagine the fear she must have lived with working there.
Absolutely. Her hesitation to come forward, her fear of retaliation, it's completely understandable given what she apparently saw and heard. The fact that she eventually did speak out shows incredible bravery.
And Vaishali, the journalist, her investigation seemed to align with Sudha's account.
It appears so. While we don't have all the details of Vaishali's investigation from these sources, her public statements about physical abuse and girls going missing strongly suggest that what she found, likely by talking to victims herself, lined up with Sudha's testimony and the audit report.
And eventually, a case was registered under a specific law.
Yes, the Protection of Children Against Sexual Offenses Act, or PSCO. The fact that a PSCO case was eventually filed really underlines the sexual nature and seriousness of the alleged crimes.
Now, there's mention of the Child Welfare Committee, the CWC. Weren't they supposed to be overseeing these places?
They were. A CWC member, Mithilesh Singha, is mentioned specifically. He's someone who, you'd think, should have been verifying these allegations, ensuring the children's safety.
Yes.
But later on, he himself gets accused of being involved, which, if true, points to a catastrophic failure in the very system meant to protect these kids.
How did he react initially when Vaishali raised concerns?
According to the sources, his response was very bureaucratic. Lots of talk about process, government formalities, not much apparent urgency or, frankly, concern for the kids, just kind of dismissive.
Which is alarming in itself.
Very. And then, confusingly, there's audio of someone linked to Bansi Sahu accusing Mithilesh Singha of leaking information and even blaming Sahu for the problems.
So finger-pointing and attempts to shift blame.
It looks that way. Adds another layer of murkiness. It's just infighting or maybe attempts by different parties to cover their tracks.
Okay, alongside the journalism, there was also legal action. A PIL.
Yes, a public interest litigation, or PIL, was filed in the Patna High Court. It was specifically about the lack of government action on the shelter home issue after the audit report came out.
Do we know who filed it?
Initially, it wasn't clear. The suspicion fell on people who knew about the report and were frustrated by the inaction, logically.
And this legal move also provoked a violent reaction.
Tragically, yes. The lawyer who filed the PIL, again referred to as Memon in the audio, same person as Vaishali's brother-in-law, was attacked outside the courthouse.
Attacked. By whom?
Allegedly by Sonu, the same person Sudha mentioned as being in charge at the shelter and who is described as an associate of Bansi Sahu.
Wow. So attacking the journalist family and the lawyer trying to bring the case to court.
It paints a picture of desperate, violent attempts to silence anyone pushing for accountability.
Faced with all this, the stonewalling, the threats, the violence, what did Vaishali do next?
She took a really bold step. She decided to bypass the official channels that were failing and take the story directly to the public. She launched a daily special report segment called Bhakshak,
Which means,
The Predator. A very pointed title. It was a clear strategy to use public pressure to force action.
and was she holding back in these reports?
Not at all, it seems. She directly called out the government's silence on air, questioned Bansi Sahu's actions, really turned up the heat.
Did this public pressure work? Did it make the authorities move?
It appears to have had an impact. Eventually, the SSP we mentioned earlier, Jasprit Kaur, intervened. She ordered the local police in charge, Prabhat Kumar, the one whose roster was supposedly canceled, to finally register the FIR.
So the media attention forced their hand.
That's certainly the implication. Sustained public attention, driven by Vaishali's reporting, seems to have been crucial in getting the police to finally take the initial legal step.
The sources also hint that this wasn't just about local corruption, but might have involved higher political levels.
Yes, there are definite suggestions of political entanglement. Bansi Sahu's connections are mentioned again, specifically a local minister named Rajneesh Singh, and hints of connections even higher up.
Implying potential political cover-up.
That's the concern raised. There are mentions of attempts to influence media coverage to sort of downplay the whole thing. It suggests powerful people might have been trying to protect Sahu, or perhaps themselves.
And then there's the alleged murder. That's incredibly dark.
It is. A social welfare department official, Satyaji Dubey, based in Sitamarhi, was reportedly murdered. And the chilling part is he allegedly knew about the problems at the Muzaffarpur shelter.
Suggesting he was silenced.
It raises that terrible possibility, yes. A potential witness or someone involved in the system who knew too much. There's even a recorded snippet where Sahu's associate mentions a minister being upset about all the negative press the case was generating. It all points towards a potential cover-up involving powerful figures.
Despite everything, the threats, the violence, the political obstacles, Vaishali kept pushing.
Her determination really stands out in the sources. She seems committed to fighting for justice for these girls, despite the immense personal risk.
But getting justice through the courts wouldn't be easy.
No, and the sources acknowledge that. The SSP, Jasprit Kaur, while supportive of action, apparently cautioned Vaishali. She pointed out the need for concrete, solid evidence, something beyond the audit report, and even eyewitness accounts to make charges stick in court.
So a reality check about the legal hurdles.
Exactly. The SSP basically said, the system has limits, you need strong proof. But she also assured Vaishali that if she could bring that kind of evidence, especially against Bansi Sahu, she would act.
But the first step was taken. The FIR was filed.
Yes, finally. The initial FIR was registered at the Women's Police Station, specifically citing the POSCO Act. That marked the formal start of the legal process, however difficult the road ahead might be.
Okay, so we've journeyed through these sources, the audit, the audio, the allegations. Stepping back, what are the absolute core takeaways from this deep dive?
Well, it's stark, isn't it? We see these incredibly serious allegations, abuse, exploitation, maybe even murder happening inside a place meant to be a sanctuary for children. That's the first horrifying takeaway.
And the response to those allegations.
That's the second key part. Powerful figures allegedly using influence, media connections, and outright intimidation to try and bury the truth. But then you also see the courage of individuals, Vaishali, Sudha, Gupta Ji, pushing back against that pressure.
It really highlights the dangerous intersection of power, media, and vulnerability.
Absolutely. The way media ownership, political connections, and the welfare system seem intertwined here is a critical insight, and how that can fail the very people it's supposed to protect.
So for you, our listener, having heard all this, what are maybe those aha moments, the connections you should really hold on to?
I think one aha is just how fragile these systems of care can be, how easily they can be corrupted from within, and how slow accountability can be. Another is definitely the sheer bravery it takes for individuals to speak truth to power, especially when the personal risks are so high.
Yeah, the courage of Vaishali and Sudha is quite something.
Definitely. And maybe a final aha is how critical independent journalism and public pressure can be. Without Vaishali's Bhakshak reports, it seems possible this might have stayed buried for much longer.
And while this story is rooted in Bihar, India, it obviously raises much bigger questions, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It forces us to think globally about how we protect vulnerable children in institutional care everywhere. What are the safeguards? How effective are they? And it really underscores the universal importance of a free press, of accountability for those in power.
Okay, as we finish up this deep dive, let's leave you with something to really mull over. One final thought.
I think the most provocative question this raises is this. When the very people entrusted to care for the vulnerable become the alleged perpetrators, what is the responsibility of the rest of society? Not just the government, but us as individuals.
How do we ensure the voiceless are heard?
Exactly. How do we make sure our own awareness, our own voices contribute towards actual justice, towards safeguarding children everywhere? It's really a call to vigilance, isn't it? And a
Yeah.
reminder that information and the courage to use it matters immensely.